Before we journey into the harsh realities of 1870s Texas, share your location in the comments. This account draws from meticulous historical research and authenticated records requiring substantial effort to compile. Those who value thorough, fact-driven narratives that resurrect overlooked histories should subscribe and remain engaged, as such accounts merit preservation rather than obscurity. His existence commenced in bondage, anonymous within a system designed to ensure neither his survival nor significance. During childhood, terror preceded communication, and brutality arrived before liberty. Upon escaping westward, Texas unknowingly received not a fleeing victim, but an approaching tempest. By the early 1870s, the defenseless child had evolved into an unchallenged force. Law enforcement officials murmured his identity, criminals evaded his presence, and settlements grew hushed upon his arrival. This represents no glorified tale, but rather a metamorphosis shaped through cruelty, grief, and a nation that manufactured its own catastrophe. His birth occurred during the early 1850s within a Texas, intensifying its dominion over human commodities. No careful documentation or festivities marked his arrival, merely notation as inventory increment. Existence began under another's ownership from the initial moment. His identity remained subject to alteration or elimination, since legislation classified him as possession destined for growth, toil, and compliance, rather than as a child. Maternal enslavement preceded his conception, her destiny predetermined before his emergence. Extended hours beneath the relentless sun consumed her days. Understanding her offspring would automatically inherit identical restrictions. Familial protection remained non-existent. Spouses and children faced separation without advance notice, dispersed across different properties, or disciplined for displaying sorrow. Affection persisted solely through hushed exchanges and concealed intervals. Early comprehension taught that quietness equaled survival. Tears summoned discipline, while inquisitiveness invited suffering. Recreation itself carried hazards, since happiness might register as rebellion. Seasoned enslaved individuals instructed when to avert vision, maintain stillness, or vanish into obscurity. Though harsh, these teachings sustained life. Brutality formed routine rather than anomaly. Lashes struck for errors both genuine and fabricated. Perpetual hunger, inadequate clothing, and scarce rest defined existence. Reading atmospheres swiftly became essential. Footstep sounds, vocal inflections, atmospheric tension, capabilities that would later distinguish survival from mortality. Despite pervasive harshness, nocturnal storytelling persisted. Elders quietly described liberation, locations absent of restraints, and forebears who lived autonomously. These narratives cultivated perilous concepts within his developing consciousness. Hope during captivity functions simultaneously as blessing and menace. Maintaining hope risked punishment, yet abandoning it constituted complete surrender. Rapid maturation occurred, solidified by adult intended labor. Approaching 10 years, his palms grew calloused, his spine marked, and childhood virtually extinguished. Supervisors began perceiving future utility not as youth, but as robust physique capable of intensified work or elevated sale value. Each advancing year heightened the threat of removal from his sole familiar family. As civil conflict approached the horizon, dread governed daily existence. Conflict rumors circulated through enslaved living quarters, discussions of military forces, emancipation, and disorder. Though comprehending the approaching magnitude remained impossible, atmospheric transformation registered clearly. Beneath accumulated fear and torment, something additional developed, an impulse toward flight, endurance, and permanent self-ownership. Upon achieving fuller environmental comprehension, violence had already established foundational reality. No gradual progression from infancy existed, only abrupt recognition that suffering materialized without warning. Elevated voices, displaced implements, or momentary delays could trigger discipline. Terror became his primary instructor, emphasizing that continuation required submission and silence. Observing adults enduring cruelty with vacant expressions provided lessons no child should acquire. Witnessing men flogged until flesh separated, women seized for verbal infractions, and children disciplined merely for sluggishness or fragility carved permanent memories, establishing constant anticipation of imminent harm. Trauma constituted not isolated incidents but environmental condition. Hunger represented another subdued affliction. Portions arrived small, sporadic, and rarely sustaining. Physical development remained stunted, while perceptiveness intensified. Discovering concealed remnants, identifying unmonitored kitchens, and consuming rapidly undetected became learned skills. Continuation demanded vigilance, gradually transforming into reflexive behavior. Slumber provided no refuge. Darkness filled with loss-laden whispers, suppressed weeping, and unspoken separation anxieties. Children vanished overnight, transferred or sold without clarification. Each dawn carried fears of maternal absence. This persistent dread taught that emotional bonds endangered safety while self-sufficiency offered greater security. Human interpretation developed comparably to literacy for others. Tightening jaws signaled peril. Particular gaits indicated approaching punishment. These observations maintained advantageous positioning, facilitating attention avoidance. Apparent compliance masked strategic maneuvering, a child learning mortality prevention. Despite surrounding darkness, internal resistance persisted against complete destruction. Each beating strengthened determination rather than crushing spirit. Suffering taught resilience. Deprivation taught emotional detachment. Understanding crystallized that compassion would never originate from owners, but required seizure or acquisition through strength. Reaching early adolescence concluded childhood prematurely. Trauma stripped innocence, replacing it with calculation and restraint. Though still enslaved and powerless, preparedness had developed. The world attempted early erasure but unknowingly constructed the survivor destined to terrorize Texas. The escape decision formed gradually, nourished by terror, loss, and perpetual sale threats. Understanding existed regarding consequences. Captured runaways faced beatings or executions, serving as warnings, yet remaining guaranteed alternative death, one erasing spirit before flesh. When opportunity materialized, fear accompanied departure alongside resolution. Nocturnal flight proceeded guided by instinct rather than cartography. Vast unforgiving terrain stretched endlessly beneath dark heavens. Every sound suggested pursuit. Canines, riders, patrols haunted thoughts while navigating brush, mud, and waterway crossings designed to eliminate trails. Hunger gnawed persistently, though halting posed greater danger than starvation. The western frontier represented chaos rather than liberation. Settlements appeared rough, legal authority thin, and violence lurked at every junction. Yet chaos simultaneously created opportunity. Where questioning remained minimal and documentation scarce, fugitives could achieve invisibility. Learning occurred regarding crowd avoidance, food for labor exchanges, and disappearance before prolonged observation. Strangers constituted constant risks. Some offered assistance, others betrayal. Swift understanding developed that trust required earning, and even then, incomplete granting. Single misstatements could expose identity. Prolonged observation might raise suspicions. Continuation depended upon blending, maintaining quietness, and perpetually planning subsequent movements. Along frontier regions, encounters occurred with individuals existing beyond legal boundaries. Cowboys, wanderers, gamblers, gunfighters. Distant observation revealed power mechanics within this novel environment. Dominion stemmed not from titles or ownership, but from force, reputation, and speed. Firearms, comprehension developed, provided protection no master could confiscate. Each traveled distance increased separation from previous existence, though apprehension never completely departed. Light sleep persisted, readiness for renewed flight maintained. Yet each sunrise rendered restrictions less substantial. For the first occasion, movement belonged exclusively to himself. Upon reaching deeper Texas territories, identity transcended mere fugitive status. Adaptation was occurring. The fleeing child was acquiring survival skills for violence-governed lands. Within this brutal freedom, gunslinger foundations quietly established themselves. Frontier existence proved harsh, unpredictable, and merciless, yet offered something captivity never provided: choice. Daily survival or death decisions became necessary. Employment acceptance included whatever availability permitted: hauling goods, livestock tending, stable maintenance. Unwanted positions few remembered. Being overlooked became greatest advantage. The frontier offered neither comfort nor mercy. Dust storms consumed landscapes, summer heat scorched skin, winter cold penetrated bone. Food scarcity, unreliable compensation, and constant danger defined existence. Card games, whiskey and pride sparked altercations. Men vanished without explanation while questions remained unasked. Within this environment, violence normalized and weakness attracted immediate notice. Swift learning occurred that reputation exceeded truth in importance. Consistent violence remained unnecessary. Others merely required believing capability existed. Observation showed certain figures commanded space wordlessly. Why? Silence could prove more threatening than shouting. These observations persisted, shaping movement, posture, and eye contact approaches. Legal authority existed solely where enforcement occurred, frequently absent. Sheriffs faced overwhelming numbers, judges remained distant, and justice proved inconsistent. This lawlessness created peculiar equilibrium. Anyone could perish, yet anyone could ascend. Previous identities mattered less than current actions. For nameless fugitives, this represented freedom's most dangerous manifestation. Solitude also developed. Trust proved rare, companionship temporary. People arrived and departed while attachment formation often concluded badly. Past concealment persisted with minimal discussion regarding origins or previous identity. Reduced knowledge enhanced safety. Silence became protective armor. Weapons saturated surroundings. Blades, rifles, pistols treated as implements rather than threats. Observing firearm handling sparked simultaneous fear and fascination. Firearms resolved disagreements swiftly, terminating confrontations before commencement. Upon the frontier, individuals possessing steady hands and composed nerves survived where others failed. Gradually, the frontier transformed from adversary into examination. Each challenge sharpened capabilities, each narrow escape hardened instincts. Existence transcended daily survival. Power mechanics within fear-governed territories became comprehensible. Preparation occurred, consciously or otherwise, for personal power acquisition. Initial firearm handling exceeded anticipated weight, not merely physical mass but significance. Upon the frontier, firearms transcended weaponry, EMB, ODing authority, protection, and survival combined. Witnessing consequences for unarmed individuals registered permanently, trouble arrival eliminated second opportunities. This lesson persisted. Initial learning occurred through observation, studying seasoned gunfighters' hand movements, weapon maintenance, tense moment positioning. Every detail mattered: grip, stance, pre-trigger patience. Velocity alone proved insufficient. Control distinguished survivors from casualties. Commencing practice involved costly errors. Ammunition expense and scarce opportunities necessitated isolated training, firing toward bottles, fence posts, distant stones. Each discharge proved deliberate, each misregistered permanently. Learning occurred regarding controlled breathing, hand steadiness, and emotional restraint. Terror represented greatest obstacle. Firearms magnified hesitation. Actual confrontations allowed doubt to kill faster than projectiles. Calm maintenance became mandatory despite racing hearts. Slavery imposed discipline now served novel purposes, emotional regulation under pressure. Progressive accuracy improvement occurred. More importantly, confidence developed. Firearms transformed from foreign objects into familiar, nearly natural extensions. Learning encompassed draw timing and, critically, restraint timing. Reckless individuals perished young while patient ones constructed protective reputations, eliminating discharge necessity. Frontier communication traveled rapidly. Single clean draws, solitary composed responses during heated moments sufficed to alter treatment. Men began yielding passage. Arguments concluded sooner. Boasting and threatening remained absent. Silence, a ND reputation communicated effectively. By the early 1870s, the previously unarmed nocturnal fugitive had transformed completely. Firearms transcended implements, becoming shields against history and future claims. Within Texas, this claim would soon face sanguinary examination. War conclusion brought Texas confusion, anger, and lawlessness rather than peace. Defeated, embittered former Confederate soldiers returned homeward. Legally emancipated individuals received freedom absent protection, land, or security. The state became a resentment, poverty, and unresolved violence pressure vessel where grudges received firearm rather than judicial resolution. Reconstruction legislation existed theoretically, but proved practically weak and inconsistently enforced. Federal authority stretched thinly across vast distances, while local law enforcement frequently exhibited corruption, overwhelming, or open hostility toward newly liberated black citizens. Vigilante justice filled voids while racial violence became common yet rarely punished. For individuals lacking legal identity and powerful connections, Texas proved dangerous yet strangely accessible. Incomplete records, easily buried histories, and rapidly constructed reputations meant previous identity mattered less than perceived capabilities. Once utilized fear could now transform into protection. Post-war economic collapse followed. Cattle drives, railroad expansion, and boomtown growth rapidly attracted drifters, former soldiers, criminals, and fortune seekers into identical violent spaces. Land, currency, and pride disputes erupted daily. Gunfights hadn't achieved legendary status. They represented routine occurrences. Racial tension intensified every encounter. Black men maintaining positions risked death, while weakness demonstration invited identical consequences. Survival required balance, strength absent recklessness, silence without submission. Careful navigation of this narrow corridor occurred. Understanding single errors could terminate everything. Within fractured Texas, law resided upon one's hip. Justice favored preparedness over innocence. State reconstruction proceeded through blood and iron, with only adaptive individuals surviving. For him, this chaos represented not merely threat, but final forge, transforming survivor into feared gunfighter. By the early 1870s, substantial Texas territories existed beyond genuine legal authority. Settlements materialized overnight along cattle routes and rail lines before vanishing identically. These locations attracted gamblers, wanderers, escaped criminals, and individuals possessing nothing remaining. Within such territories, unwritten rules received firearm-enforced compliance. Sheriffs remained few, often powerless. Some demonstrated bravery, yet faced overwhelming numbers. Others accepted bribes, faced threats, or simply ignored situations. Courts remained distant, while justice moved too sluggishly for relevance. Card games, wages, insults, or livestock theft disputes received immediate, typically violent resolution. Death became commonplace, memory brief. Within lawless spaces, reputation constituted everything. Individuals known for hesitation became targets, while those known for decisiveness faced avoidance. This comprehension developed swiftly. Minimal speech, rapid reactions, and absent empty threats defined behavior. Each encounter added layers to developing perception. Gunfights rarely resembled dramatic confrontations. They proved sudden, brutal, unforgiving. Second chances, heroic declarations remained absent. Only instinct and velocity existed. Survival resulted from patience, awareness, and emotional control, learned long before weapon deployment. Settlement-to-settlement communication spread rapidly. Names received whispered repetition, details suffered exaggeration. Some narratives portrayed monstrous characteristics, while others described phantom-like appearances and disappearances. Rumor correction remained absent. Fear accomplished protective work, maintaining distant danger. These territories completed transformation. Lawlessness rewarded individuals comprehending violence without governance by it. Untouchability resulted not from bloodshed pursuit, but from understanding its inevitability. Where order collapsed, positioning occurred. The once hunted property had become an avoided individual, ensuring others' survival. Within 1873 Texas, this status established him among the most dangerous living figures. Within frontier settlements, fear became currency exceeding gold value. Every glance, rumor, whispered account contributed to reputations providing superior protection compared to any alliance. Men swiftly learned confrontation represented unaffordable gambles. Silence spoke as loudly as actions, while mere presence sufficed to shift room power dynamics. Understanding developed that fear transcended killing, perception dominated. Single well-timed skill demonstrations could convince observers of far greater lethality than actual necessity. Stares, composed hands hovering near holsters, or simple refusal to retreat during tense moments caused bravest individuals to yield. Deed accounts traveled rapidly, exaggeration increasing with each retelling. Some claimed unmatched drawing speed. Others swore he traversed shootouts untouched. Tales remained unconfirmed yet functioned favorably. Every whisper, warning constructed psychological barriers few dared crossing. Fear enabled minimal violence navigation through dangerous spaces. Potentially hostile towns became cautious, even respectful. Saloon proprietors, gamblers, drifters collectively learned to maintain distance or exercise careful speech. Absent reliable law, reputation approximated closest protection form. Unnecessary flaunting never occurred. Bragging suited fools. Power, understanding developed, proved most effective when subtle. Others' underestimation occurred at their peril. Story spreading and rumor growth formed strategic components. By the early 1870s, the chain-fleeing child had evolved into a figure commanding rooms without vocal elevation. Fear sustained life, provided leverage, and transformed survival into dominance. Ultimately, reputation itself became weaponry, a reminder that within Texas's lawless frontier, most feared men often spoke least while acting decisively. Violence never occurred accidentally within his environment. It constituted implement, message, and occasionally sole solution. Upon complete Texas adaptation, confrontations became inevitable, whether defending claims, ensuring self-protection, or responding to challenges. Danger faced with composed precision, few could replicate tested childhood-honed capabilities. Gunfights rarely resembled legendary duels. They proved sudden, chaotic, deadly serious. Deaths occurred over slight insults, disputed debts, or crowded saloon missteps. Careful situation interpretation occurred, striking decisively when necessary, departing when risk exceeded reward. Progressively, his identity became linked with rapid retribution. Those crossing him frequently never survived tale-telling. Survivors departed with lasting impressions, ensuring story propagation. Inspired fear functioned as both shield and deterrent, preventing numerous threats before complete materialization. Each violent encounter sharpened reputation. People learned provocation avoidance. Composed, measured chaos heat actions rendered him unpredictable and dangerous. Even seasoned outlaws hesitated upon name mention. Survival depended upon balance. While some relied exclusively upon brute force, he combined skill, patience, and timing. Understanding existed that single missteps could terminate life. Every confrontation received calculation, every movement deliberation. Within deadly skirmishes, fear psychology also became comprehensible. Intimidation often accomplished more than projectiles. Glances, stances, or mere hints that firearms could appear instantly sufficed to conclude conflicts without discharge. By late 1873, violent confrontations transcended challenges. They became proving grounds. Each solidified legendary status of someone escaping slavery to become among Texas's most feared gunfighters. As reputation expanded, law enforcement attention increased. Sheriffs and marshals, whether local or traveling, began noticing the silent mover, decisive striker leaving enemies with enduring fear. To them, he represented not merely a outlaw, but lawlessness symbolism plaguing post-Civil War Texas. Despite pursuit, cornering rarely occurred. terrain knowledge combined with childhood-developed fleeing instincts rendered him nearly untrackable. Understanding existed regarding movement timing, concealment locations, and town-blending methods where lawmen searched. Every escape reinforced mystique. Bounty posters possibly carried his identity, yet sightings often suffered exaggeration, adding mythological layers to reality. Authorities sometimes pursued shadows rather than actual individuals, amplifying reputation solely. Townsfolk whispered potentially fictional encounter stories, yet generated fear proved genuine. Stakes comprehension existed. Capture could mean imprisonment, lynching, or death. Yet law pursuit also served as peculiar validation, confirming evolution into a force too powerful for ignoring. Each narrow escape reinforced both confidence and others' fear. Even law enforcement learned respecting caution. Unnecessary killings rarely occurred, yet strategically deficient apprehension attempts often concluded with wounding or humiliation. Cleverness reversed situations, creating untouchable appearances even against supposed justice upholders. Constant authority pressure necessitated perpetual movement, skill refinement, and unpredictability maintenance. Evasion mastery developed, understanding roads, trails, and hideouts superior to anyone regionally. By late 1873, identity transcended simple fugitive status, legendary status achieved. Authorities desired apprehension, yet the frontier itself feared him, and myth-reality boundaries blurred with each daring escape account. By the early 1870s, boundaries between individual and legend began blurring. Deed accounts traveled faster than physical movement, with each retelling adding embellishments, sometimes portraying invincibility, other times as vanishing shadows. Some accounts claimed insect wing shooting capability. Others described walking through dozen-man firing squads unscathed. Truth proved far more complex. Yet every exaggeration served survival purposes. Rumor correction rarely occurred. In fact, growth received encouragement. Fear inspiration proved easier when precise capability remained unknown. Townsfolk, outlaws, even lawmen began acting upon perception rather than reality. Well-timed past confrontation stories often exceeded handheld firearm effectiveness. Beneath myths existed hardship, skill, and instinct-forged individuals. Each action, though calculated, originated from experience, survival childhood under slavery, fleeing years, and unforgiving frontier existence. Reality involved not supernatural skill but relentless preparation, observation, and nerve. Even survivors often exaggerated accounts, blending fear with awe. To them, he seemed larger than life, a natural force rather than individual. This provided unmatched advantage. Fear maintained distant trouble without single discharge necessity. The frontier thrived upon stories, with his becoming among most enduring. Around campfires, within saloons, across dusty trails, untouchable gunslinger whispers spread, transforming him into both warning and legend. Myth and reality intertwined so seamlessly that differentiation proved difficult. Within this gray space, operation occurred with freedom and authority few could challenge, since no one truly knew subsequent actions. By blending truth with legend, shield creation occurred more effective than weaponry. A fear aura providing protection, commanding respect, and establishing permanent Texas frontier law presence. By late 1873, the chain-born child had left indelible Texas marks. His fear-whispered name across frontier settlements became synonymous with deadly skill, ruthless efficiency, and impossible odds survival. What commenced as life's struggle had transformed into a legacy outlasting him. Every gunfight, narrow escape, fear-built reputation became stories told long after departure or disappearance. The frontier remembered not merely violence but embedded lessons. Fearless individuals could claim power, survival required intelligence alongside courage, and single individuals could alter entire regional fear-respect balances. His actions created ripple effects. Other outlaws, lawmen, ordinary settlers learned respecting unwritten rules he embodied: strike decisively, calculate every movement, never underestimate individuals with nothing remaining. His identity became danger measurement standards. Spilled blood wasn't wasted. Each confrontation, each duel was a chapter within determination-defined, freedom-remaining willed existence. The frontier proved brutal, with his survival proving strongest chains aren't always physical but mental, emotional, strategic. Even as time passed and stories achieved legendary status, life truth remained inspiring and terrifying. He escaped slavery bonds only to master fear bonds, using them to carve authority-commanded space. In many respects, his legacy was a warning. Vigilance absent freedom proved fragile, while discipline absent power proved fleeting. Survival had transformed into art form, with the frontier becoming canvas. Ultimately, his story transcended violence tales. It testified to resilience, cunning, and human will rising above unimaginable beginnings. From slavery chains to feared Texas gunslinger, his existence became blood-written legend, echoing across the Old West for generations.